box happen to be GPs. And so in a moment, as we get sharing, we'll say a little bit about which teams we're leading and the areas that we're leading. And so we're going to take a fairly simple format today, and we're going to be looking at just what's been an encouragement in our areas, where our areas for growth in our Catalyst teams and areas, and also towards the end, just areas that we would value prayer for. So Angela, I'm going to come to you first, if that's all right. I'm going to start off by just asking you to say what Catalyst team and area you're leading, and to say something about what's encouraging you at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So yeah, I'm Angela. I think if you were logged on earlier, you would have seen me speaking in that video at the start, but I'm part of leading the Merseyside team, and we've been going about 2.5 years now. It's been a really encouraging 2.5 years, sort of the whole process of getting the team together and seeing that grow. We've also been really encouraged by our prayer WhatsApp groups that we've got going for sort of several of the hospitals in the region now, and one for general practice as well. And they have been really encouraging, particularly through COVID at the start, to really see people loving and supporting each other. You heard a bit about from Joe and Grace as well about the particular one on ITU and how that's been sort of the result of years of faithful prayer. So that has been a real encouragement for us. I think one of the perhaps slightly out of the box encouragements that we've had has equally been how we've been able to support some Christian patients whilst they've been in hospital. So I had a couple of occasions where I've been told that there's a Christian patient on the ward. Obviously, visiting is very limited with COVID at the moment. I've been able to then WhatsApp to the relevant group, see who's in, ask if anybody can go and pray with the patient. They've been able to then go and pray with the patient, perhaps sort of feedback, be in contact with their families. And actually, that's been a real sort of witness on the wards as well for those doctors to say, oh, why are you here on the ward? And who have you come to see? And actually to say, I've actually just come to pray with this patient. And actually been lovely for doctors to be and nurses to be able to pray with their patients. So that has been a real unexpected encouragement from having the network in the region.
Great. And Paul, do you want to say which Catalyst team you're involved in leading, and something about what's encouraging you at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm Paul Waits, and I'm Catalyst team leader for Morecambe Bay CMF, and we've been running a couple of years now. And I was thinking about what I might share today, and I don't know why, but I thought to myself, how did I even get into this game? A few years ago, what kind of brought us here? And actually, probably the same for you guys. It was just a feeling of wanting to see Jesus at work and Jesus move in medicine. We just thought, more of Jesus is good for medicine. And I think as we kind of, gathered a few of us together, we realised that how important it is to do that in community. And I think what kind of attracted us to CMF, because we didn't even know the CMF vision at that point, the unite and gather to live and speak, how it's so important, that community, the uniting and gathering, how one, the output follows the first part. So I think the big encouragement for us has been how we've been growing as a community, uniting and gathering together around Jesus. And one of our team leaders shared with us, I think she thought we were getting a bit burnt out with kind of output and trying to do stuff, and she said, I think God is just really telling us, don't worry so much about the output, just try and focus on resting in God and resting in Jesus. And actually, if we make that the focus, if we're abiding in him, the output will naturally follow. So going along with that, we've been meeting weekly on doing prayer Zooms, and that's been really big encouragement. God's been supporting and strengthening each other through each other, basically through these prayer Zooms. So meet up, have a bit of a chat. This is I love this picture. This kind of sums up meeting together, praying together, and also what a Catalyst team is as well. The idea that we all have our little gaps and struggles with life, but there's always people around to support us and carry us through. So big encouragement is the uniting, the gathering, the praying and supporting each other more through the weekly prayer Zooms, and also through our Saturday morning sessions as well. It's been really good. Thank you.
Fantastic. And just for me, I'm leading the West Midlands Catalyst team, and we've been a Catalyst team since March. In fact, officially kind of became a Catalyst team on the day of lockdown. So I do remember the day of lockdown because I met with John in a supermarket cafe on that morning, and then we went into lockdown later that day. I think one of the things that's really encouraged me, you heard already about the Unburden series of events that we've been doing as a region. And we just held an online retreat, and that was really encouraging. We had 42 people do that. It was a 3-hour event where there was both personal, there was facilitated led sessions and reflections, and also personal time as well. And actually we found the privacy of an online retreat format really helpful, and it helped many people to do that. So we are thinking about we're actually planning to run the same retreat again, and also to do similar events in future. But I think what's encouraged me about the Unburden series has been that sense of listening to God, that we heard him speak about what he was passionate about for us as a region, and then we've come out of that and put together a series of things that have all actually been very different. So we've done a webinar, we've done the retreat, we've done a 24 hours of prayer. We're currently gathering videos and encouraging our groups to use them as a way of encouraging them as part of the same event as we mark lockdown. So it's been great having that creativity. I've also been really encouraged to see the growth in the team. Actually, we came out of being an established CMF committee previously, but very much in transition. And then as we've come through to the year, seeing a number of people joining the team and taking up their roles has been really encouraging as well. So Angela, I think you've got the next question.
Yeah, I have, yeah. So I'll go to you first, Paul, with this question. Okay, so what would you say is an area for growth or opportunity for your region at the moment?
Yeah, so we were really inspired by the last year's Catalyst conference, Team Leaders Conference, where we had a session on Christian workplace groups. So we kind of nicked the video and ran it as a Saturday morning session, and everyone got excited about it. So one of the growth areas for us is kind of talking about this output now. How can we actually bless and serve in our workplaces? So that's an area of growth in terms of thinking about setting up these workplace groups. So we have like a fledgling group happening at the moment in one of the hospitals. So we just need to try and develop that. The second area is that we're planning a 24-hour prayer event on the 27th of March, Saturday, 27th of March, going from 2 p.m. on Saturday till 3 p.m. on Sunday. And people are saying, what do you mean it's 25 hours? But actually the clocks go forward. So we had to kind of end it at 3 to get our full 24 hours in. So, you know, we're really looking forward to it, really praying for this event. It's going to be a combination of a 24-hour open Zoom room with kind of hourly facilitators. And we're going to try and get local churches involved with that, and really try and call people to pray for our healthcare services, for, you know, locally, nationally. There's also going to be a chapel 24-hour prayer in the hospital chapel, up to 3 people over 24 hours. So we're doing this in collaboration with the chaplaincy, and they've opened it up to the hospital. And it's going to be more of a kind of they call it a sacred space. So we're trying to invite people of other faiths, anybody who really wants to come and have that space, but there's going to be kind of prayer resources in there. So it's really a call to prayer, this 24-hour prayer event. So yeah, it'd be great if you could be praying for that. Thank you.
And what about you, James?
I think one of the things that I see as a real growth area is connecting with churches. I think I've really been struck that where a lot of the people that aren't currently connecting to CMF, be they nurses or midwives or other healthcare professionals, including of course doctors, that they're often actually in churches. Their church leaders know where they are, but we may not know where they are unless we happen to meet them in our workplaces. And that one of the ways we can actually see people more engaged with CMF is through good relationships with churches. And so one of the things we've just started to do a little is building relationships with some of the Church Together networks. So we've got some big Church Together networks in some of our big urban centres in our region, and so starting to build relationships with them. And so we actually had, for example, Healthcare Sunday was actually advertised out to all Birmingham churches through the Churches Together network. So by contacting them, they then sent an email out to their whole network, which was an amazing way of getting the information and news out about what CMF is doing out. So we're conscious that we want to build that relationship, and also thinking about are there needs that church leaders have that relate to CMF, that by meeting those needs would make them more open perhaps to talking about CMF with their members. And that leads me on to the other big growth area I feel for us as a region, which is nurses and midwives. Our nurse and midwives numbers are a relatively small part of our membership. There are lots of Christian nurses and midwives in our region, and we would love to see them connected to each other, encouraged in their Christian faith. And yes, we'd love to see them be connected to CMF as part of that, but particularly just see them connected to their Christian faith. And so having Georgie in our team and just thinking about how we do that is a real growth area.
Brilliant, that's great. I think lots of those things you said are kind of similar for our region, so I won't repeat those, sort of engaging with churches and those outside sort of the doctor professions, how to bring them in. I think for us, particularly as a team at the moment, we're kind of 2.5 years in, so we had a big sort of boom and growth at the start, and then hit COVID, and there was lots of support and encouragement there. Zooms got running, the WhatsApp groups really thrived and supported each other. And then it feels a little bit like we've hit a bit of a slump. And I think that's probably a normal part of team life, isn't it? Things grow, and then you hit sort of a plateau region. It feels a little bit like that's where we are at the moment. And how do we encourage the membership? How do we be helpful for them? What would be serving them? How do we re-engage, and what do we do sort of going forward, potentially as we come out of lockdown and could potentially do some real physical things, or do we keep persevering with Zooms? How do we keep that momentum as a region going, I think?
Great, I think I've got the last question, so it's what can we be praying? So I'll give that to you, James.
I think first of all, I'd just say thanks, really. A prayer of thanks to say for all that God has done in the last 12 months. I've just seen new groups coming into being, people supported, connected. And actually for us, strangely, through Zoom and through virtual connection, more connected than we were previously, particularly in a large region where physical face-to-face meetings didn't really enable the whole region to connect. Actually, virtual has been a much better way of connecting for lots of people. I think particularly prayer, picking up on what you were just saying, Angela, prayer for wisdom about how we shape and encourage local activity as we start to unlock. It's getting that balance between the virtual, which I think there's lots of the virtual elements that will still be helpful and important to continue, but how do we keep the good of that as well as start to think about how we do other things that are physical face-to-face things. And I think also prayer for the whole pastoral care element of what we do as CMF and in the region. I think I'm very conscious that as we come out at this point of COVID, and COVID is very much an issue still, of course, and very painful for lots of people still, and challenging, but I'm conscious there's lots of pastoral needs, and I'm concerned that as we come out, there'll be lots of people who need support and help, and how do we do that well as a region? I appreciate prayer for that.
Great, thanks, James. And Angela?
I'd echo a lot of that, but I guess specifically for us, we're at a period of change now, so a lot of my key team members are moving on over these next couple of months, so in the process of sort of recruiting and replacing for them, also desiring to see us grow together therefore as a new team, and particularly looking at whether there are other members to come on board. I think particularly pray for our student work, so that's been mostly run by fifth years who will be moving on, who should take on that role next, and how we sort of encourage students when it's been so hard to engage with them over Zoom.
Great. And for us, the workplace groups, the development of that there could be visible presence as the body of Christ in our workplaces, being of benefit to people there. Secondly, the 24-hour prayer event I've mentioned, and thirdly, just as a Catalyst team, just really for kind of discernment in terms of what sessions we do, how we do them, what our direction is. Be really grateful for that. Thank you. Over to John.
Great.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing with us. There's some things to really be praying for you there. So I hope we made a note of those. We'll come back to that in just a moment. So does anyone have any questions that they'd like to put to these three? And we can open up, no pressure on you guys, you don't have to answer all of them. If you'd like to ask a question live now, you can do. If you can raise a virtual hand. So you go to your reactions button. It should have a raise hand there. You can also clap them, put the thumbs up, laugh at them, send some love and so on. But the raise hand one is probably the one we're going for now. So if you'd like to raise a question, please do. I have had a question come through on Slido as well, so you can always put your question through on Slido if you'd like to do that alternatively. So anyone wanting to ask a question? Oh, no hands so far. This will be a quick session. We'll be praying for you guys. So Jim, over to you.
So my question is just particularly about this whole catalyst model that John's kind of inspired us with, really, to the leaders. So what would you say has been the thing that's been the kind of most useful thing about this catalyst model? That's kind of part one. And part two is, if other people are kind of joined today or on the call today, I think, you know, maybe I might start a catalyst group, what would you kind of be your kind of top tip? So yeah, so what you found the most useful thing about the catalyst model, and what would be your kind of top tip if someone was thinking of maybe a group?
Who wants to take that? Go on, dive in, guys. It's a good question.
I think my top tip for if you're thinking about it would be go for it. Yeah, if you've got that kind of desire and passion there, it doesn't matter how small it starts. And you know, it will grow from there. Paul shared a little bit earlier in our little group about how things grow from a seed, and it doesn't matter what size they start from. And I think if your motivation is there to try and see something happening in the region, yeah, just see, you know, go with it, and God's going to bless that. So give it a go.
I think I would say that what's helpful about the catalyst model is the clues in the name, that it's about catalyzing, it's about facilitating, supporting, enabling. It's not there, of course, is an element of doing in our roles, but it is particularly about seeing what God is doing and helping that to grow, and seeing how we can support, encourage, and catalyze others. I think the other thing that's helpful is there is a sense of commitment that being a Catalyst team leader or a member of a Catalyst team involves. But when I've talked about that with others as they've considered joining the Catalyst team, what I feel is really, yes, we're being asked to make a commitment and be honest about how much time it takes to do a role like this. But as we make that commitment, I feel that CMF has, from a national perspective, really said, if you're making that commitment to do that, we're making a serious commitment to you, to support you, to encourage you, to enable you, to resource you to do the role that you feel called to do. So yes, you're making a commitment to do it, at the same time you're resourced to do it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. That's great. Precious, thanks, Jim, for that question. Precious, you're up now. So if you're on mute, hear from you. There you are. Oh, yeah.
Hi, thank you very much, guys. I wanted to ask, it's probably something that's on many people's mind, but when it comes to recruiting new people for Catalyst team, and going for a few years now, any practical tips about, you kind of talked about praying for the students and just new people, what sort of practical things could we be doing about just thinking about the future and sort of leadership rather than sort of managing administrative things, but just kind of inspiring new people to get involved and take the vision forward?
So one thing that we a region was we did an engagement event. So often before you start Catalyst teams, there'll be some sort of engagement event to just tell people about the vision and give people an idea of what's happening. But what we did as a region is we actually ran it once we'd started as well, as a way of letting people know, what are we doing as a team? How can they get involved? What's the vision and passion behind Catalyst teams? And I think my hope would be that we would do that sort of event probably yearly, as a way of being open so that people can see what it involves. I think if it looks hidden what it is, then people won't feel they can engage with it. But if we're open about what it is, that's going to give people a better idea of how they engage with that themselves. And so that would be one way that I think established teams can engage people.
I think for us, the other aspect of it is just actively praying as a Catalyst team for team members, you know, and asking God to kind of direct you towards people. So we invited someone onto the team recently, Jane, she's here today. She's kind of exploring whether she wants to be a team member, but it's like a few of us just had the idea kind of almost around the same time to ask her. So obviously God was in that. So I think, you know, the kind of, you know, seeking God's guidance is really important. And also I think when someone comes onto your team, try and work out what their vision is, you know, what they want to see happen in healthcare, and try and kind of dovetail how they fit in the team with what God's kind of calling them personally to do and to be in medicine. I think if you get that combination, it works quite well as well, you know, because you don't want to put kind of, you know, square shapes in round holes and things like that. So.
Thank you. I just had a question on Slido about resources for Catalyst team, so for hospital prayer groups. Felicia, would you be able to just, the question, any recommendations for resources or programs for hospital prayer groups particularly?
Yeah, so at the moment I am I'm speaking to a variety of people who have started things up. And so at the moment we are currently in the developing resources. I've developed some resources for local groups, which some of you will know about, and I'd like to hear more from you, but definitely for workplace groups as well. So if you have got a workplace group going, or you know about those kind of prayer groups, then, you know, please let me know, because I'd love to develop resources that help all Catalyst teams. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Felicia. That's great. Thanks. Janet, you've got your hand up, so you're up next if you're on mute.
Thank you. What specifically can we do as pastoral care partners to help you?
And is that for these teams, Janet, particularly, or for CMF?
For the Catalyst team leaders, what can we do as pastoral care partners to help you?
Yeah. That's a great question. Just to say, for those who don't know, pastoral care partners are developing across the country. Some of them are within Catalyst team regions, some are not. We've got a number of you on the call today, and Steve Sturman's been heading that up. So the aim is to provide that pastoral support, as it includes in the name. I think it's a great question, Janet. How can that link in to help support Catalyst team models? Over to you guys for the answer. Good question.
I think be connected to your Catalyst team would be, and I know certainly I'm aware of who our pastoral care partners are in our region, and we've got someone within our team who is heading up pastoral care. Actually, in our case, it actually happens to be Steve. But we have someone within the team who's doing that, but we're also wanting that relationship and connection. So I think if you're a pastoral care partner and you're not connected into a Catalyst team, then my encouragement would be to connect in. And sometimes we'll become aware of needs, sometimes you'll become aware of needs, but I think the other thing is also, how can we encourage people to engage with the pastoral care team? Certainly in the communication I send out to my region, I have, every time I send an email, there is a link to the information about how to connect with the pastoral care and wellbeing team.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a great answer. There's a question there about allied health professionals. And what I do is, after the breaks, we're coming up to coffee, and I'm going to share something very exciting news on that front. But the other answer to that question around involvement of people in allied health is that we have some on the call today. We are very keen to engage with, of course, nurses and midwives and doctors, which is in CMF's kind of original mission statement. It's in our, that's how we exist. But over the years, we've very much linked with allied health professionals as well in different forms. And as I say, we'll share some exciting news after the break about some more in that area. But we are keen to work together. And there are certainly some teams with allied health professionals on, and you're very welcome. So that's just to make that clear. We had the other question we had on that I've seen, the last question as we go to coffee, is this: other than allied health professionals as a group, are there any Christians from certain specialties who are less engaged in CMF, and how can this be addressed through Catalyst teams if needed? So are there certain specialties that we feel that we're struggling to reach? So I wondered what that's been your experience, guys, and also maybe bring Felicia in to start us off on that one before we have coffee.
Yes, so we definitely know, just from even from specialty day conferences, that that there are specialties that are less engaged. We won't need to go through all of them, but basically If you haven't seen a day conference happening for a specialty, it's probably because we haven't got people who are coming forward and saying we'd really love to do something here. So if you're really keen about something happening in your specialty, or you know of other people, please send them my way, because we definitely want to develop the specialties network, and make sure that actually we are across all specialties in that way. In terms of allied health professionals, I've come across a lot of local and workplace groups where actually we do have allied health professionals involved. So we're not exclusively saying that they're not. So as you come across more, again, it would be good to hear from them, because actually Jesus needs to be in the whole of medicine, across the whole of healthcare.
Okay. Anything to add, guys, from a team leader perspective?
Yeah, I mean, one of our kind of local vision aims was to try and be inclusive of all specialties, all healthcare workers. And interestingly, we did a session a few months ago on chaplaincy, which is like chaplains for elderly people. And we found that kind of 3 or 4 geriatricians jumped in who we'd never seen before. We did a session on parish nursing, and then all the nurses showed up. So I think what kind of that taught us was actually, if you choose your sessions well, that can be a good way of bringing in all these different specialties and areas, and so I think that's just something we reflected on.
Thank you, guys. That's really helpful. Yeah, go on, James.
I was just going to say, what I've been surprised at, we've done a regular Zoom support and encouragement meeting for about a year now. And what surprised me has been the number of seniors, so middle grade up to consultant level people who have engaged with that. And I think that's about making it accessible. That was a group that historically we didn't engage very well with, actually. We tended to be more, we saw the sort of younger group, students, juniors, and then perhaps retirees. Whereas actually, I think the combination of need, I think they have a greater sense of felt need through this period. There's accessibility in that they can get to something because it's on Zoom, and it's, even if it's in an evening midweek, they can do that. Whereas a midweek actual face-to-face meeting wouldn't have been possible. And so I think actually, I've been surprised by seeing people engaged that I perhaps historically wouldn't have expected to see, but really encouraged to see.
Yeah, fantastic. Guys, thank